It's the funny thing for me, Ruby actually was, I would almost say accidentally, the first language that I did learn. And really the impetus for that was I wanted to build a delivery service for my Python was the first language. Ruby was the first language that I developed a project in. So I give that more meat. I'm at
Understood.
college and I wanted to build a delivery service for things students wanted delivered to their dorm. Whether it was a paper they didn't want to walk across campus to print or a candy bar, whatever it was. I'm in college, I'm thinking about this stuff. And I hadn't even done, I was in like intro to software engineering at that time, just like CS, 100, 101. This was freshman year. And I knew I wanted to build this service, but I had absolutely no idea how. Somehow I stumbled upon Ruby on Rails specifically. And I remember similar to, I didn't read the blog post like you did, that was, 30 minutes of wow me with Ruby on Rails, but I think it was a Udemy tutorial that I purchased for $9. And within an hour and a half, I had a backend set up with the schema and I was using Rake and it all generated it for me. And I felt much more powerful and intelligent than I was. But truly, in probably a month's time, I was able to build this really clunky service where people could register you as a user and they could order some delivery of either a paper, like I said, a candy bar, get it sent to their dorm. And I had, fleets of people running around delivering things on campus. Unfortunately, that service got shut down because they wanted the lawyers of the school came to me and said, this is to some extent disempowering the average student. We want them to take responsibility to, print their own papers and deliver their own. And I was like, it was kind of the most interesting for a school that supported, entrepreneurship adventures like that. Really interesting for them to be like, we're going to shut this whole thing down. I digress. Ruby on Rails was really cool to learn, and I almost kicked myself a little bit for putting it to the side as time went on. I became much more of a JavaScript, TypeScript kind of guy, and I'm much more on the server side entirely now for what I do for work. But Ruby
Yeah.
on Rails knocked my socks off, and before I was even a major lover of definitely typed languages, statically typed languages, it was the magic that enabled me to do what I wanted to do in 2 months, and it was really impressive.
Yeah, no, I can relate. I remember when Scala came out and the Play framework came out, and I was really interested in this new language and this new framework. And I went and tried to build something simple in it at one point, and I remember just being frustrated at how like it had a pretty smooth, pretty quick getting started type system and pretty smooth development experience, to be honest. Like especially compared to say like your traditional C# or Java or heck C++ type language.
You said
But I
Scala?
remember, yeah, Scala and the Play framework early on. But it was still like I remember being frustrated at how much extra it took to do things like restart the server or generate
Mm-hmm.
things or debug and start and stuff compared to just things like Rails generate this or Rails new.
Does Rails still hold that spot for you for, let's say you had an idea and you wanted to just bring it to reality really quickly? Is Rails what you would default to for, I guess, something that's more web focused? I guess it would really depend on the project.
It would depend on the project. For more meatier things, it is still what I would run to. Especially if I'm starting to deal with if I need to do anything medium complexity on the database, Rails is still going to be my default. For basic things that aren't necessarily touching the database or that have super like based database operations, I've tended more towards Express or Fastify these days,
Gotcha. And
or
I
Nest
guess
actually.
Nest, everyone that knows me knows Nest is my not my first love, but certainly my current love. It's something that I don't stop talking about it. But maybe while we're there, what do you like about Nest specifically? Are you since you have had all this exposure to the beautiful and automated CLI things that Rails can do for you, what do you like a
Mm-hmm.
lot about Nest?
I'm actually a really big fan of how well it ties into like the dependency injection. It gives you a really good solid structure for your code. I used to be a bit of a dynamic language purist, honestly.
Mm,
And over the past few years, working with Go and TypeScript have really kind of been like, okay, this is a nice middle ground in terms of like giving you this support that a static language can give you without giving you so much boilerplate that you see and that I saw at least back in the day working in C# and Java itself, especially early days of those languages. Um, I should clarify, for early days, I mean, for me, like 2003 to 2008 time period.
Yeah.
That's when I was exploring and learning a lot of those. And so I like Nest's integration with TypeScript.
Mhm.
And like I said, the structured approach, like it gives me that kind of structure that I enjoyed from Ruby. It gives me kind of that, well, I want to do this. Okay, here's how to do it.
Yep. Without getting in the
That
way a little,
else
like, you
has-
know what I mean? It gives you
yeah.
the scaffolding, right? Just the bare
Mhm.
bones. It has a way for you to do what you want to get done, and is also very extensible. And you can also go down a layer deeper, I guess, on the request response cycle, like into Express or whatever it
Yeah.
is. It does have that foundation, lets you go a little bit deeper if you'd like to. And to Harry's point on the last podcast, doesn't get in the way when you want to do something that's a little bit strange or weird or different.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't have quite the enthusiastic founder who's set on doing things in one way that Rails has as well.